Let me show you something. Now, drills like that may look pretty cool, but they are useless unless you've got your head screwed on straight when you have to shoot seriously. And that's what we're talking about today, is the concealed carry frame of mind. So what we're talking about is the concealed carry frame of mind, or what some people would call mindset. I don't like to use that term because it brings about a whole bunch of wannabe commando connotations, and you hear people say things like, when he came through the door, I switched from mindset Saskatchewan to mindset Manitoba. And I find things like that really counterproductive, so I like to use the term frame of mind. And in talking about this subject, it comes with the normal caveats. One, that mostly what I'm going to do is sit here and talk, and I really don't like doing that. There's plenty of people already doing that, and I don't care to be one of them. Secondly, everything I'm going to tell you today are just my opinions, and my opinions are based on my education and my experience. Different people have different experiences, so they have different opinions. I make no claim that my opinions have their origin in the mind of greatness, and you should be incredulous to those who do. And finally, in saying this, you're going to have to put up with my Shatner-esque pauses and my speech impediment, and I appreciate your indulgence. So with that, let's get to it. In talking about the concealed carry frame of mind, a lot of people will say a lot of things. What I would say is you have to have three things: situational awareness, belief, and the ability to make good decisions in a bad situation. Now, situational awareness means that you are aware of your surroundings. You're paying attention to what's going on. That does not mean that you're paranoid and you're panicked and you're afraid of every twig breaking. That does not mean that when you're standing in line at the theater and you hear footsteps coming up behind you, that you whip your pistol out and draw down on the person behind you, because when you're standing in line at the theater, people walk up and get in line behind you. It means that you take a moment to look over your shoulder and see who's there and pay attention to it. Situational awareness. The second thing is belief. You have to believe that crimes occur and that they can happen to you. Now, when I say that, people become dismissive and say that sounds ridiculous. Obviously, you believe crimes can occur. You've seen the stats, you've seen the news stories, you have a concealed handgun license, you're watching me right now. Obviously, you believe that. There's a difference between intellectually knowing something and truly believing it. Now, again, we've all seen the stats, we've all seen the news stories. And in all fairness, I have to point out that in most types of crime, assaults, sexual assaults, carjackings, burglaries, robberies, homicides, crime in America has, in almost every category, been going down in almost every year for over 20 years. The crime rate in the United States right now is really quite low. But even at that, we all know crimes occur. And we all know that intellectually. And there's a difference between knowing that and truly believing that crimes occur, they can happen to you, and they just might happen to you today. And I'll expand on that a little more in just a minute. And the third thing is having the ability to make good decisions in a bad situation, to keep your head when other people are losing theirs. Now, let me tell you an anecdote or two that will illustrate my point. And this first one, bear with me, I've told this before to illustrate another point, but it illustrates these points I'm making today so well that I'm going to tell it again. And it comes with the caveat that to really tell it in a way that would make sense would take over 15 minutes. I'm going to try to condense it to just 2 or 3. So it goes like this. I was with 2 other people. We were out in the middle of nowhere in the rolling hills of sagebrush, and we were rabbit hunting. Well, we made a big loop around, and then we came back and we're sitting in lawn chairs next to our big red F-150 pickup. Because this is an area where a lot of people are target shooting, driving their off-road vehicles, hunting varmints, it was not in any way a cause for alarm when I saw approximately 5 people several hundred meters away that were armed. Well, they disappear into the flora, and a minute or 2 later, bullets start flying over our heads. Well, 2 of us, we jump out of our lawn chairs and run behind the only cover we have, the pickup. And the third person I was with, and I've said this before, I'm going to change his name and call him Joe because I don't want to embarrass him. Joe is standing out there dinking around with his gear, completely oblivious to what's going on. And so I told him we were being fired at, and these were my exact words and exactly how I said it. "Hey Joe, you better get down, we're taking fire." Now I'm not going to tell you the exact words of what he said back to me, but he made it very clear that he did not believe me. Well, several more rounds flew over our heads. He realized that he was being shot at, and he then ran around the pickup with the other two of us. At this point, some of you were thinking this sounds like a hunting accident. No. If I told you the 15-minute version, it would be very clear these people were shooting at us intentionally. Okay. Now, this illustrates my point very well of a lack of situational awareness on Joe's part. Bullets are flying over his head, and he doesn't notice. For lack of a better way to describe it, when a bullet flies over your head, it sounds like tearing a piece of paper. And this is also a good time to point out that Joe and I were in the Marine Corps together. And if you were in the Marines, you know exactly where I'm going with this. When you shoot for rifle qualification, you shoot on the range while there's somebody down under the targets in a trench called the butts. And those targets are in a carriage. And when you shoot the target, he pulls the target down, finds your shot hole, marks it with a big marker, and runs it back up so you can see where you hit. That's part of the training, is being down in the butts, having bullets flying over your head. Anybody who's been in the Marine Corps knows very well what it's like to have bullets fly right over their heads and knows what it sounds like. And if there's anybody that should have known that, Joe should have. Complete lack of situational awareness. Also, he didn't notice when the other two of us jumped out of our lawn chairs and ran behind the pickup, or at least didn't notice the significance of it. And belief. Now this is a good time to point out that Joe sleeps with a gun under his pillow. He's the first one to tell you about crime and criminals and what criminals will do and so forth. But when it comes down to someone's shooting at him, and I'm telling him someone's shooting at him, he does not believe me. He does not have the belief that that kind of thing truly can happen to you. And the third point, making good decisions. When he finally figured out that he was being shot at, he panicked, dropped his gun, and ran. So now there's three of us standing behind the pickup while people are shooting at us, and the only one with a gun is me, and there's approximately 5 people, and they're 300 meters away, and the gun I have is a Ruger 1022. Yeah. Well, they never did hit any of us, and then a couple minutes later they quit shooting, and I saw them fleeing the scene, and it turned out to be nothing. But this illustrates my point about situational awareness, belief, and making good decisions. Let me tell you another anecdote. I was downtown, semi-crowded sidewalk, middle of the day, and I was with 2 other people. And we're walking north on the sidewalk when around the corner comes 3 people walking south. And these are 3 rough-looking characters. And as they start getting close to us, they're about 15 yards away, they get on line. And I noticed that the one that's closest to me is carrying an old-school glass Coke bottle. And he turns it around and holds it by the neck and puts it around behind him like he's ready to use it as a weapon. And they're closing on us quickly, and this is when I realized these people have nefarious intent, and the target of that intent is me. Well, I assumed that the 2 men I was with would figure out that this was going down. It didn't even occur to me that they wouldn't have seen this. And what I did was I put my fists up and closed the gap between me and my assailant and confronted him, and I said something to him like, if you're going to use that Coke bottle, you better use it now. And he apologized profusely and dropped the Coke bottle, and the 3 of them ran away. Now you might be thinking, okay, maybe he was thinking that I was a rough-looking... Nobody is afraid of me. Well, when this happened and they ran away, one of the men I was with, he was laughing so hard that he about collapsed on the sidewalk. He thought me punking that guy down was the funniest thing he had ever seen. If you knew me at all, you'd know that doing something like that is completely outside my nature. If I did that, I had a very good reason for it, and he should have known that. The other person I was with was Joe. Yes, same guy. When this happened, Joe stood there just with a dumbfounded look on his face, completely aghast at my display of such antisocial behavior. Again, if you knew me at all, you'd know that doing that is totally outside my nature. If I did it, I had a very good reason for it, and Joe certainly should have known that. Now here's a good time to point out that Joe is a quite accomplished martial artist. But that black belt does not do you any good if you're wearing it for a blindfold. Situational awareness, belief that something can happen, and the ability to make a good decision when it does happen. Now I'm going to tell you one more anecdote, and this is a time when I got caught with quite a lack of situational awareness. I was at a gas station. I'm standing there. I got my wallet in this hand, my credit card in this hand. I'm putting it in the pump, and I'm about to pump gas. About 3 islands over, there's a carload of 4 or 5 teenagers, and like typical teenagers, they're laughing and carrying on. Well, about then I hear someone say, "Help me." And I'm telling you, it sounded just like that cheesy 1950s horror movie where the guy turns into a bug and he says, "Help me." Yeah, don't admit it if you've seen that one. But I hear that, and then I hear it repeated, and I didn't think anything was wrong. I just thought it was these kids goofing off, and I just, out of curiosity, I kind of look over. There's a car on fire at the gas station. Well, I run over to the door of the convenience store that's right there to get the fire extinguisher, and I'm met by the gas station employee who hands it to me. Interesting, he hands it to a complete stranger rather than, try to put the fire out himself, since he actually worked there, but that's another story. And then I run over to this fire. I still got my wallet in my hand, and I throw it at my friend. "Hey, hold this for me." And as I get to this car, I see that there's flames coming out of the gas port. Now, there are only flames about so high. And then on the ground is the gas nozzle, luckily not pumping gas anymore, and it's in a pool of gasoline a couple of feet in diameter with flames about knee-high coming from it. Well, I shoot it with the dry chemical fire extinguisher while the flames coming out of the gas port are right next to my head, and then I turn and just point blank shoot this dry chemical right into the gas tank, put the flames out. While all this is going on, the owner of this vehicle is standing there saying, "How could this happen? How did my car catch fire?" Well, that's the moment when you should be concerned with the fact that it is on fire, not concerned with how it happened. And this person didn't have the sense to run and get the fire extinguisher themselves, didn't have the sense to run away from a burning car, didn't even have the sense to yell, "Fire!" Just stood there doing a really good imitation of a cheesy old monster movie saying, "Help me." You have to have the ability to make good decisions in a bad situation. Okay, I think I've about beat that horse to death. Well, this brings up the question, how do you get the ability to make good decisions? How do you get belief? How do you learn situational awareness? Well, for situational awareness, there's a lot of people that they have color codes, and there's a lot of people that do different things. What I would tell you is you have to make the conscious effort. You have to, when you come to the door, your front door, when you go out into the world to go to work in the morning, you have to take a breath and say situational awareness and get your head in the game and then go. When you leave your place of work, you have to do the same thing. And if you practice it enough, it just becomes something you do, like tying your shoes. You'll do it without even thinking about it. And when you leave your place of work and you go out to your car, again, situational awareness does not mean that you do a presentation on the back seat of your car because the boogeyman might be in there. It means that you notice things like your car door's unlocked when you left it locked. It means you notice things like your car tire is flat when you know it had air when you got there. It just means paying attention. Now, what about belief? Sadly, there is nothing I can do and nothing I can say that's going to give you belief. You're either going to get it or not. You might think that someone who's been through a bad situation, who's been mugged, who's been robbed or whatever, would be forced into a belief frame of mind. No. Earlier when I talked about someone was shooting it at the three of us, there's more to that story. Let me tell you a little more of it. Later that night, at about midnight, I woke up and I looked out in the distance, and here was some headlights. There was a car driving out through the sagebrush. Now, it's public land. People can be there. But at midnight, driving around in the middle of nowhere, especially when those headlights were in the exact same place where someone had been shooting at us from earlier in the day, I figured I should go check it out. Situational awareness, belief. So I got up, I waked Joe up and told him what was going on, let's go check it out, and he asks, what for? And he then turns over and goes back to sleep. Earlier in the day, for reasons to this day I still have no idea why, someone had been shooting at us, and now, some hours later, he has no belief whatsoever that he just might be in a bad situation. What? Oh, what? Yeah, I went out there and tromped around in the sagebrush for 2 hours, never did see anybody out there, and wandered around in the middle of the night, and whoever was driving by, I guess they just drove by and it became nothing. So it's not the crisis I make it sound like, but still, it illustrates a complete lack of belief. And just because you've been in a situation that should shock you into the belief doesn't necessarily mean that it will. Now, the third thing, how to make good decisions in a bad situation. How to keep your head when the pressure is on. Wow, that's tough. But that is something you can learn. One of the things you can do is you can go to the range and practice drills like what I was doing at the beginning of this presentation. If you learn to shoot fast, shoot accurately, and you know you can shoot fast and shoot accurately, you build confidence. And if you have confidence in your ability to handle a situation, then you are less likely to panic when you get into that situation. Now, this comes with a very big caveat in that it must be confidence that comes from real ability, real training, not self-delusion. We all know that guy that just can't get a date, but he really thinks of himself as quite a ladies' man. I'm sure you know that guy. Yeah, self-delusion. Your confidence must come from real ability. Another thing you can do is shoot competitively. Doesn't matter if you win. Shoot competitively. When you have to shoot fast, shoot accurately, under stress, while there's a time clock in your ear, while everybody's watching, you learn to operate under pressure. And not just shoot competitively, do anything. Go bowling competitively. That will give you the ability to operate under pressure. The third thing that can help you build confidence is, no, bowling's good. The third thing that can help you build confidence is hunting. Now, I know that's something that a lot of people have no desire to do, and some people have no access to do. But if you can, it's something that can really make you a better shooter, give you better situational awareness, and give you the ability to make good decisions in a bad situation. Because when you're hunting, the targets don't pop up when you want them to. They pop up randomly, and they don't behave the way you think they should, and they are abstract targets at unknown distances. And if you can shoot well hunting, you can shoot well in other situations. Now, let me tell you some names. Alvin York, Audie Murphy, and Manfred von Richthofen. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that last one incorrectly. You probably know these people by different names. Alvin York, better known as Sergeant York. Prior to being drafted during the First World War, he was a dirt poor hills folk kind of guy that quite often only had meat on the table because he shot it. Audie Murphy, depending on which source you read, was the most decorated American serviceman of the Second World War. Same story. Prior to the war, he was a dirt poor, rural living subsistence hunter who, again, sometimes only ate depending on how well he could shoot that day. Manfred von Richthofen, better known as the Red Baron, before the First World War, he was an avid and very successful hunter, and he attributed his success in flying, at least in part, to his success in hunting. And if you can go hunting, I'm not saying go out and murder the squirrels in the park. Do it legally and ethically, but if you can do it, it will make you better at shooting. It will make you better at making good decisions in a bad situation. So, to recap everything I've said here today, situational awareness, belief, and the ability to make good decisions in a bad situation. And that pretty much covers what I want to say about mindset. So if you've been watching this entire thing, thank you for your indulgence. And thanks for watching the Frame of Mind video.